worse than Jim Crow, it's Jim Eagle. I have no idea what the hell that even means. But for you youngins out there, at one time, there were poll taxes in the South. You had to pay money in order to vote. Well, black people were poor, therefore they couldn't come up with the money, couldn't vote. Literacy tests. Blacks were not taught to read and write. Well, you can't pass a literacy test, you can't vote. Grandfather clauses. Well, if your grandfather could vote, you could vote. Well, black people's grandfathers couldn't vote, so therefore they couldn't vote. That's what used to happen. But having to produce ID, having to verify who you are, that's worse than literacy tests, worse than poll taxes, worse than the grandfather clause. How insulting is that? And nobody says anything. One of these Biden administrators, Biden himself will say this, nobody says anything. Excuse me, Mr. President, my parents grew up in the South, and they told me stories about how black people were required to come up with a poll tax in order to vote, how black people were required to pass literacy tests, and how black people were subjected to what's called a grandfather clause, where they could only vote if their grandparents could vote. And you're comparing the Georgia law, which all it does is say that you have to verify who you are, and the majority of black people support voter ID. You're comparing it to that? Isn't that kind of insulting? Condescending? Insulting to people who went through that, Mr. President? Of course not. I'm not going to say anything.